thrilled that Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut is here to join us next, and he's going to be introduced by Taylor Gleason, who many of you may recognize as NIFTY's Social Action Vice President-elect.
Good morning. Again, my name is Taylor Gleason. I'm the Social Action Vice President for the North American Federation of Temple Youth, or NIFTY. I'm a proud native of Boulder, Colorado, Temple Emmanuel in Denver, and NIFTY's Missouri Valley region, formerly known as MOFTY. 3 years ago this July, tragedy struck my home state when at the premiere of Batman, a man opened fire in a movie theater in Aurora, killing 12 people and wounding 70 others. Acts like this, of such horrible violence, have become all too common in our country, as our new speaker only knows too well. Senator Dick Blumenthal of Connecticut knows how gun violence can affect individuals and communities. As a former state attorney general and U.S. attorney for Connecticut, he has been responsible for helping maintain law and order. And in the aftermath of the horror at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, he has redoubled his efforts to help protect others from experiencing such violence. NIFTY as well is saying enough is enough to gun violence, partnering with the RAC and other organizations to enable teens across the United States and Canada to contact their legislators and demand action, to write articles in their local newspapers, to deliver sermons and divrei Torah in their synagogues, and to educate others in their temple youth groups on the pressing issue of gun violence. As we engage in this work, we know we have an ally in Senator Blumenthal. Building on an already successful career, he has helped to end deceptive tobacco marketing aimed at children, worked to reform the health insurance industry, and championed women's equality. And now he is making gun violence prevention one of his primary focuses. The senator has been essential in crafting important legislation aimed at protecting victims of domestic violence from gun violence, an area of gun background check laws that have a surprising loophole. Working together, I know we can act and make this, Sandy Hook, Aurora, and all forms of gun violence a sad and distant memory. It is my pleasure to welcome Senator Dick Blumenthal.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. A little bit about myself. I am from Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut, and very proud of the folks who are here from Connecticut, most prominently Rabbi Pesner. Congratulations on thank you very much for your service in Westport, and thank you now for assuming a leadership position here. And thank you all for really your commitment to social justice, which is part of who we are, part of our faith, part of what drives us to be better human beings. One part of the introduction that you won't hear from somebody who doesn't really know me well is about my parents. My dad came here in 1935 to escape persecution in Germany. He was 17 years old. He spoke no English. He had nothing more than the shirt on his back, and he knew no one. And this country gave him a chance to succeed. My mother came from a little bit different background. She was the daughter of a farmer in Omaha, Nebraska. My grandfather had a farm just south of Omaha where he raised corn and cattle. And as a matter of fact, he gave me my first job in life, which was shoveling manure on his farm. My wife, Cynthia, says it was pretty good practice for what I do here. So, you didn't hear me say that. This is a great way to make a difference, being a United States Senator. Before I served in this position, I was Attorney General for the state of Connecticut, a member of the state legislature, a lawyer, and the chief federal prosecutor in Connecticut, the United States Attorney. So a lot of my life, a lot of my career has been about our justice system as a lawyer and an advocate. working and fighting for people who needed a voice, who were unrepresented. And that's what you are doing by being here. You are a voice for social justice. One of the major issues in my mind of social justice is in fact gun violence, because it affects so many people in so many different walks of life. And I came to it in the United States Senate because a community in Connecticut was so devastated by it. Newtown, Sandy Hook. I was there on the day that moms and dads went to the firehouse at Sandy Hook to learn what had happened at the elementary school there. And I was there when 20 of those families learned that their children, 6-year-olds, would not be coming home that night. And forever in my memory will be seared the cries of grief, the faces of those parents who learned that their children had perished because of a massacre, the use of an assault weapon by someone who never should have had access to it. And 6 great educators who lost their lives, some of them trying to protect their children. Newtown became a symbol here, and the families who came here from Newtown to work for measures against gun violence were the most effective advocates on behalf of that cause. What we sought were very common sense, sensible measures, background checks that are now, in essence, a fulfillment of a law that prohibits certain people, dangerous people, from having guns. Federal law right now, with the support of the NRA, prohibits felons, drug addicts, domestic abusers from having guns, but there's no way to enforce that law without background check. And yet we were opposed. A ban on assault weapons, which are designed to kill people. You know, that's what they are designed to do, to kill and maim other human beings, not to hunt or do recreation. A ban on high-capacity magazines with 10 or more clips. And a ban on illegal trafficking. Right now, not prohibited under federal law. Straw purchases done by one person for another, typically by someone for a felon, because felons aren't allowed to buy weapons. So these common sense measures were defeated. They weren't really defeated because they had 55 votes when we had the vote, but in the Senate of the United States, 55 votes, a majority, isn't enough to win because of the filibuster. When people say to me, why is the Senate so dysfunctional? A lot of it is the fact that 60 votes are required to pass almost everything here. And I voted against the filibuster 4.5 years ago when I first came to the Senate. It was one of the first votes that I took. And some of my more senior colleagues said to me, you'll be sorry because one of these days you'll be in the minority and then you'll be glad you have a filibuster. Well, I'm in the minority. But I still think the filibuster is anti-democratic. And in that instance, when we had 55 votes, we could not pass a gun violence prevention measure. Common sense steps supported by the majority, 90% of the American people. And even the gun owners, a majority of them favor it. I'm sure we have some here. And many of them will come to me and they'll say, why do you want to take my guns away? And of course the response is, the government can't take your guns away. The Second Amendment, as interpreted by the United States Supreme Court, says you have a right to own a gun unless you are a convicted felon or, in effect, you're dangerous for other reasons. And just to show you the consequences when it comes to domestic violence, a woman is 5 times more likely to die as a result of domestic violence if there is a gun in the home. All of these numbers, again, mask individual human beings, like Lori Jackson. Lori Jackson, a mom of 2 infant children, left her estranged husband to go to live with her parents because he was threatening her. And she got a protective order against him visiting or coming to see her. The protective order did not require that he surrender his guns because in Connecticut and many other states, protective orders, if they're temporary in the first 2 weeks, don't require weapons to be surrendered. So he had his guns and he used them to stalk her, to gun her down in her parents' home, 2 a.m. in the morning as her parents slept nearby, and to injure and almost kill her mother. Lori Jackson's mom is alive today, but Lori is not, because the protective orders issued did not require guns to be surrendered by someone who was judged to be dangerous to her, judged by a judge. So I have a bill, very modest bill, Lori Jackson Victim Survivor Protection Act, that would require protective orders, whether they are temporary or permanent, to require surrendering of weapons. Right now, the permanent ones do, but the temporary ones do not. And the most dangerous situation for women who are victims of gun violence is in those first 2 weeks, because that's the time when the rage is greatest, when she's just said, I'm leaving, or I want a divorce, or I want you out. And that's the time when the protection should be greatest as well. This fight against gun violence is far from over. We're not going away. We're not surrendering. I'm determined to continue this work with colleagues like Chris Murphy, who is from Connecticut as well, and was with me at Newtown when this horrific tragedy occurred. But this has been a long-standing battle. I started when I was Attorney General, and we passed a ban on assault weapons in Connecticut, and then I defended it in the courts. And Newtown is only the latest, and you've heard the list of these kinds of mass atrocities. Well, they are repeated every day on the streets of our cities, our suburbs, our rural areas. We're talking about tens of thousands every year who die as a result of gun violence, needlessly. Young people who are in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the proliferation of guns in this country, the spread of gun violence, is one of the threats to social justice that is most pernicious and most insidious. It threatens the very fabric of our society and the greatest, strongest country in the history of the world. And we are the greatest and strongest country in the history of the world, but we are still a work in progress, and we can make it better and safer through making sure that guns are sold to people whose backgrounds have been checked through the FBI criminal data system, banning illegal trafficking of guns, banning certain kinds of guns that have no purpose except to kill people, and making sure that we also deal with the mental health needs of certain people. Mental health is one of the most neglected public health areas in our society. And I'm just going to close on this note. I'm on the Judiciary Committee, which focuses on gun violence. And I'm also on Armed Services and on the Commerce Committee. But I'm also the ranking member, the ranking Democrat, on the Veterans Affairs Committee. We just passed a measure, and I led the effort, called the Clay Hunt Veterans Suicide Prevention Act, named after Clay Hunt, a Marine who came back from Afghanistan. I have 2 sons who have served. My wife and I have 4 children. 2 of our sons have served in the military. And Clay Hunt came back from Afghanistan, struggling to overcome post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury. The VA failed him because it didn't give him the mental health care that he needed. And the shame and stigma of mental health issues in this country is one that affects everyone, most particularly our veterans. This new law will help provide more mental health care to our veterans. 22 veterans in our country every day commit suicide. 22 veterans take their own lives, which is a disgrace. And one of the most moving moments of me in my term as U.S. Senator was to stand next to the President as he signed that bill, next to Clay Hunt's mother, next to John McCain, who led the bill with me. This was completely bipartisan effort. Mental health, school safety should be bipartisan. So should be stopping gun violence. There's nothing Republican or Democrat. And I hope that we can make progress coming together on a bipartisan basis on this issue and helping the states. I'm sure many of you are from states that have better, stronger laws than the federal government does on gun violence. Connecticut does. And I'm proud to be from Connecticut because it has taken the lead, but I'm sure you are from states that have similarly taken action on this measure. So thank you for being here. Thanks for your commitment to social justice. Thank you. And I know you're a little bit behind schedule, not due to me. I love Bob Casey. He's a great senator. And you are much better off having heard more from him than from me. But I would be happy, I'd be happy to take any question. Yes?
Yes, my name is Clement from the state of Massachusetts, which passed last summer. Really good gun violence legislation. And I applaud your work on that issue. It's been outstanding. We just heard 2 days ago from Rabbi Joel Mosbacher on a campaign called Do Not Stand Idly By, which is focusing on leveraging the purchasing power of mayors, towns, and the federal government it's a white space where perhaps we can influence gun manufacturers to produce safer, more trackable firearms. And the effort to try to convince the Obama administration through executive order perhaps support that effort on Do Not Stand Idly By. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that program.
It's a great program, and I should have mentioned that program along with some of the others that have gained more support in the wake of Newtown and the effort to stop gun violence. Moms Demand Action, responsible gun owners. There are Gabby Giffords and Mayor Bloomberg and a variety of very responsible leaders have started grassroots efforts. That's really going to be the key to achieving federal action, is this kind of citizens movement, citizen action. And I think it's very, very important that it go forward, and I think it's a great effort. Yes.
Accessing the federal data that we need to really implement the law. We passed a gun violence portal that everybody has to register in to actually buy a gun, but we can't link it to the federal database. We also can't get lists of the bad gun dealers in our state who are creating some of the crime gun inventory. So our interest is trying to figure out how to get around some of the blocks that have been put in federal laws for us to access the data we need to do our work on the state level.
When you say we, do you mean the state government authorities?
Yes, we passed a great state law and we're having trouble implementing it because we can't link to the federal data that we need.
I would very much like to look into that. I've heard about that problem occurring, the inability or difficulty in accessing the NICS, the federal database that contains criminal records and similar kind of information. And I will look into that. I thought it was working perhaps better than it is. Thank you for raising that point. It's a very good point. You know, this database is really a huge resource, and it's the way that the system has to work to prevent dangerous people from having guns. One more question? Yeah.
Because my husband attended a workshop with one of our wonderful rabbis here, Rabbi Aaron Meyer from Seattle, Washington, I learned something very powerful, and I want to bring it out to the whole room. Language is so vital, how we language things. And Rabbi Meyer was able to put through something in his congregation about gun responsibility as opposed to gun control. If the language could be changed here in Washington, I think a lot of people around the country would lose their fear about losing their guns. What do you think about that?
Well, you'll notice, I think you're very right. Are you from the state of Washington? From Washington State?
He's asking where you're from.
Sorry, I'm from New York.
You're from New York, okay.
I just wanted to give the rabbi.
But the rabbi was from Washington State. Because I was going to say,
He's from Seattle,
Washington State, your senators have been great on this issue.
Yes.
And it has taken a lot of courage and fortitude for people like Bob Casey and others from other states. I'm from Connecticut. We have a lot of support for hunting in a lot of, all over the country. But in certain states, it's taken even more courage to stand up and speak out and to articulate these ideas. And articulating means using language that people can understand. A lot of those gun owners who come to me and say, why do you want to take away my guns? And my answer to them is, well, do you want criminals to have guns? You want drug addicts? Oh, no, I don't want criminals to have guns. Well, why not background check? Oh, I don't mind background checks. Well, that's what our proposal is. Oh, no, your proposal is to take away my gun. It's explaining. So, yes, words are important. You will notice I have not talked about gun control. Gun violence prevention. Gun violence prevention. Not that I think you can use words to mask or disguise concepts or misrepresent them. I'm absolutely accurate in what I say, but explaining truthfully and accurately in ways people can understand is critical to winning the battle here. So yes, words are important. They're important in many legal issues, and they're important to trying to make progress here on achieving social justice. Because the more people understand, the more informed they are, I think the more we come together. This is a place where you really try to seek common ground. And on this issue, I think we have so much more in common than in conflict. So thank you very much for your great work.